When we collapse our own timelines, we don't just do it for us, ourselves. When we collapse our own timelines and we can integrate the lessons and we can become more what we're here on this planet to become, the result of that is that we can deliver a service. Now, how can I respond instead of react so that I can grow as a human being, I can evolve, I can give this person a platform, a safe space to also step into their functioning adult. And now we can work together to evolve both as human beings, and then from that natural evolution, the work is going to flow. Time is actually just a concept that the humans created. We humans created, and time is relative. Okay. So it's actually not time that is the challenge you're experiencing right now, is your personal relationship with time.
Welcome to It's Not What You Think, the podcast that takes you on a transformative journey to rewrite your story of greatness and reawaken your soul's purpose. I'm your host, Celine DaCosta, a subconscious mind expert, master coach, and believer in the limitless power and magic that lives within all of us. My intention in this podcast is to propel you into your next level of success so that you are free to create the life that your heart most desires. Through deep, actionable insights, personal stories, and world-class guests, I'll provide you with the tools, strategies, and resources you need to unlock the fullest expression of who you're meant to be in this lifetime, so that you can consciously design a reality that is beyond what you could have ever dreamed of. Join me on this journey to personal growth and evolution, and let's live our lives in accordance with our highest soul's calling. This podcast is your weekly check-in to help this path become more simple, obtainable, and fun. Thank you for tuning in today, and now let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. Today, I have a very special guest to me, and it is actually the first guest in this season who is one of my clients. And I wanted to bring her in because we've been working together for about 3 years, and the work that we've been doing has been nothing short of phenomenal. And more importantly, the transformations which we're going to really start to unfold and open up in today's episode have been absolutely breathtaking. So without further ado, I have Susan here with me today, and Susan is a superwoman. She is a superwoman. That is the very short one-word description, the media bio description. She will tell you a bit more about what she does and why she does it. But my experience of Susan from the day that she came to me and from the many hundreds of hours of deep work in person, online, and collaborative that we've done together, what I can tell you is that, yes, this woman, she is a Fortune 200 executive. She's been in corporate for over 30 years, and she also has her business helping people heal at work. And my experience of her is just that no matter what has gone on in this beautiful soul's life, which she'll share more about in today's episode, this woman has been through so much in her life, so much trauma, so many challenges, and so many beautiful things she's overcome. And no matter what, she gets back up and she says, I want to get better. I want to grow. I want to heal. I want to live more of my life in the most beautiful way that I can, and I can do it. What do I need? Where's the support that I need? How can I receive what I need? And so, Susan, one of my favorite things about you is your just endless thirst for knowledge, endless thirst for understanding. And even when you don't know why or how or what the heck is going on, you keep coming back for more in the name of healing, in the name of growth, in the name of your personal evolution. And that is, in my opinion, one of the coolest freaking character qualities. When I encounter people like this desire of I want to grow and I want to expand, I want more of life, and I want to actually live my life for everything that I am here to be and do, it is such a powerful quality. And so thank you so much for being a guest on the show today. And I would love for you to more, officially or unofficially, as you wish, introduce yourself to our listeners
Celine,
today.
thank you so much for your kind words. I feel that and so much more about you and the work that we've done together. It's phenomenal. I'm so excited to be here on this podcast. And so I guess just to introduce myself, the professional official resume is a corporate HR executive. I've been in the HR world for 35 years. And I've had a lot of privilege to work in some of the top companies. I'm in a Fortune 200 right now. I've been in 2 other Fortune 500s in the last 15 years as chief HR officer for a very large global company. And I always tell people the resume looks great. And a lot of people would say, "Oh, that's pretty good, Susan. Good job." And I almost laugh now because what most people don't know is that all of my career success was fueled by my underlying belief that I wasn't good enough. And I would go into work every single day. And I don't think I was consciously thinking about this, but I felt like I had to prove myself every single day in, day out. And pretty much every night after work, I would go home and do an assessment of myself to determine how I had done, which never was good. I always would question, I should have said this in that meeting, or I can't believe I said that in the meeting, or why can't I be smarter like so and so? And so every single night I'd go home, drink my Chardonnay, beat myself up, and go right back to work and do it the next day. And so the path that I've been on with you, Celine, has been so amazing because it's really been the work around unraveling how much growing up in a dysfunctional past affects us at work every day. And you said something when you were talking about me a minute ago that really struck a chord about the fact that I came from a past with trauma. I think it's really important for people to know that I never, and I think a lot of high achieving, overachieving perfectionists don't think about coming from a trauma-filled childhood. I didn't really realize that until I was 53 years old. I'm 59 now. So it was a long time on a journey of not even realizing how much my past was affecting me at work. So that's a quick description of who I am. And I'm just delighted to be here with you today.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And even as you're sharing, I'm like, God, I can't wait for us to go deeper into this podcast and for people to really understand and receive the wisdom that you have to offer around healing at work and the importance of this. And let's going back, rewinding a little bit. What I'd be really curious for you to share with us is the trajectory that's, you said you didn't figure this out until you were 53 years old. Like it took you a while for you to have this awakening of like, oh my gosh, there's actually another way to be. There's another way to live. There's another way for me to create my life. And so if we can rewind back to 3 years ago when you came to me, and I remember you were in a very both distraught and inspired space in your life all at once, where on one hand, you were being driven by what I call the creative muses. There was something moving through you. It was unstoppable that just said, I have to share my story. I need to put myself out there. I need to actually start to create the thing that my soul is calling me to do. And it was this beautiful space of just when I find a lot of people when they come to me, and I've gone through this, so many evolutions of this myself, which is that there's this moment where your soul is singing so loudly that your ego can't help but listen. Like it just can't not listen anymore. And so, with some people, it drives them really mad. And that's where the distraught is, because you can easily go absolutely insane on the levels of, I know I'm meant to do this, and I know that this book wants to come through me in your case, or this new business wants to come through me, this new way of living wants to come through me, and people they don't know how. They're just stuck. And we know, this now, you didn't know it back then, around all the limiting belief systems and all of the subconscious programming that was actually keeping you caged in your old way of being, and you had no freaking idea how to break out, but you knew you had to because your soul was like yanking you forward. And so if you could share in your own words, like a description of, 3 years ago, where were you? What was happening in your world as, you found me and we started to work together? And, there's so many things. I know that like for us to cover all the things we've created together in the past 3 years is really big.
Podcast.
It would take like hours, but here's what it's a PowerPoint deck. But I'd love if you could highlight, if we were to look at the past years, like an arc of your own personal transformation, where were you then? And what were the, I would say, like top key things that you had to become and deconstruct through this work to get you to where you are today? So in the past 3 years, if you were to summarize the journey in your own experience and basically the top realizations and insights that you had and transformations that have occurred for you in this timeline.
So if I go back 3 years ago, I was close to finishing the book that I was writing with my co-author, Martha Finney. And we had worked together for a couple years, originating off of an original manuscript I'd written back in 2017. And so we were close to publishing. And I was freaking out. It took me a long time to write the first manuscript. It took Martha and me another 2.5 years to do a ton of research and with her, creative brilliance, reposition the original manuscript to be the healing at work concept. But I was scared to death to publish it because I was sure that it was going to result in a lot of judgment and criticism of me professionally. I worried about what my employer would think about me writing this book. I was extremely afraid of some of my family members reading the book because of some of the stories that are in it. And I was frozen. I almost was paralyzed. But I loved how you described what was going on for me, because it really was something bigger than me that was driving me to write this book. There were too many things along the path that happened that were absolutely godlike. I believe in God and a higher power. And I was being pulled and I was kicking and screaming because I really didn't want to put myself out there. And Martha saw one of your ads somewhere for a one-on-one intensive. It was a New Year's Day ad. And I didn't know who you were. I knew you had great reputation. You had great, people that you'd worked with. So I signed up for that 90-minute one-on-one intensive. And I had no idea what we were going to do. I had no idea what we were going to talk about. And you were amazing. And through your techniques and the methods and your rewiring my life methodology, rewire your life methodology, you took me into a place, and I don't even remember how you did it exactly, Celine. I just remember being blown away. But the biggest takeaway for me that came out of that was the realization. Actually, there were a lot of key takeaways, but one of the big ones that came out was the realization that my why for writing the book was way bigger than my fear. And it was such a breakthrough insight about, okay, yeah, I'm afraid, but my purpose in writing this to help other people to avoid the suffering that I experienced through 30 years of my career was so much bigger. I mean, it was like no comparison. My fear was like this little teeny, a little teeny thing sitting on the floor, and my why was like the world. And I remember also that some of the things that happened when you were doing your magic, I don't know how else to explain it, were concepts that came up that I had not thought about that are now core in the book. I went back and did a ton of additional writing in partnership with Martha to capture the essence of some of the key insights that I had when I was doing the work with you. Because in the discovery of my why, I discovered that I wanted people to become conscious to how much growing up in a dysfunctional past affects us at work every single day in destructive and dysfunctional and debilitating ways. And so that led to the creation of my concept, which was we are either living the unconscious, wounded career path, where I was for a long time, or we can make a choice and step onto the conscious healing career path. And it's like going through a dark forest with thorns wrapping around you and scary things everywhere, depression. And for me, I'm grateful I've been sober for almost 19 years, but using alcohol to self-soothe. You can go on that path, or you can choose the conscious healing career path, which is what I teach in Healing at Work. So that's what I remember from that first 90-minute session. It like blew my mind. And I was on a mission then. There was no way I was mentally prepared to handle criticism from either direction, professional or personal. And we published the book 3 months later.
I remember that was incredible. Just the speed at which the moment that you got it. It was like this, right? And this is something that you've experienced many, many times in our work together. And, clients come to me for is when we're talking about collapsing timelines, what does that actually mean, right? And what does that have to do? Even one of the reasons why this podcast has come to life through me is because I want to support with collapsing these timelines on a collective level. And what we were really, I don't remember exactly what we did. I just remember I was doing my thing. But I remember that I could see you and I could see your, part of my practice and why I love doing this work is to really see the soul behind the conditioning. And I could see your light just shining, and that this book needed to come through you, but you were so tremendously stuck because there was these big pieces. There was some trauma that was still unresolved. There was also some subconscious belief systems that you have already nodded to around I'm not enough, or like if I show myself, I'm not going to be accepted. So there was these really deep-rooted subconscious belief systems that were not allowing you to speak your voice. And then there were these really strong fears around, well, if I put myself out there, I'm going to be punished, like something bad's going to happen. It's not safe for me to put myself out there. And so the core of our work together was really to set you free from those belief systems and to set you free from the energy that was, blocking your nervous system. It was literally just coagulated in your nervous system. And so the work that we did together through these modalities is just untangling and releasing and opening up, number one, your energy field to like be clear and coherent, to come back into alignment with your soul. And then also the mind, the good old mind, like really untangling those belief systems and rewriting them on a subconscious level. And once that work happened, then you basically like you got smoothed out, and then your soul was able to like operate through you, and then it just flowed. It was smooth like butter from there, and the writing just poured out of you, and you were able to complete this book because you were finally able to actually listen to your soul and to recognize what it meant to just deeply listen to the guidance that was moving through you, and then just actualize it into reality, which is something you're very, very good at doing, is the execution part. And so that's really what allowed that to go so smoothly. Beautiful. And so, and then what happened?
Oh my
ever
gosh.
since then, what's
been
come
such
alive?
an adventure. I don't know how else to explain it. And again, I credit Martha and you in great part for the experience. Partnering with Martha really began a digital journey of exploring other people's digital courses. So I remember after my one-on-one intensive signing up almost immediately to do your Master Your Story course, which is now I think the School of Story, and loved it. It's the best digital course I had done. I'd done several others just trying to understand how do people help others globally? How do you do it? How do you do it through the digital world? And, so I was just a consumer of digital courses and learning what I liked and what I didn't like, but then just really exploring how thought leaders create their thought leadership globally. And that it's just been a blast. I've learned so many thought leaders. I've been the benefactor of many different courses. Yours is at the top of my list in terms of how you design it, how you deliver it, how you interact with people that are all core to your values. And, so I've been on this journey of understanding how to do that. And then also just kind of putting myself out there and offering to do keynotes on healing at work. And my keynote, I just did it last week for several people in Israel. And I could not believe the testimonials from people coming about the impact that it had. And then also in the last year, it's taken a little bit of time because I do have a full-time corporate job where I spend most of my time. But in partnership with an amazing virtual team and an amazing woman that has helped me build my very first online self-study course for healing at work so that people can learn how to apply the principles and the practices and what I teach in the book in partnership with Martha. And they can do it in a self-study course. So it's in beta launch right now. It's very exciting. And I've got 30 people that are going through it, giving me amazing feedback. And what I'm experiencing is just this opportunity to share it with as many people as possible. And to feel other people learning and looking at their careers and their professional work experiences so differently after either hearing me speak or reading the book. I can't even tell you how I find it so inspiring to see other people having these insights that are changing their lives, and it's a blast. So yeah, it's been a busy busy
Mhm.
journey, but it's been amazing.
So, here's what I want people to hear, because this is really incredible and it's so inspiring. But and I know that, let's rewind back to what we were saying around, like, 3 years ago. You were in a space of, I'm stuck. There's something wants to come through me. It's not like, you basically what I call energetically constipated, right? Like, it's trying to come through. It's not coming through because of all the
Mhm.
subconscious pieces and blocks that are in the way. And so there's like this so uncomfortable feeling. And the reason why I speak to this is because so many people are going through this. Like, so many people are going through this. It's part of the reasons why I have a prolific job. And also it's just, I keep seeing it everywhere that I go. It's just, and I've been through this myself. So I've not only seen it, but like, I know the extreme discomfort of my soul's calling me forward. And there's all these things, all these belief
Mhm.
systems that are telling me that I can't do it, that I'm not enough, that I'm not able to do it. How could I ever pull it off? And so what's really beautiful about hearing your story, Susan, is that once you're able to like clear and actually what you said, like, say yes to your bigger why,
Yeah.
say yes to your soul purpose, and saying yes to service from your soul. And when you were able to say yes to that, and actually you obviously showed up, did the work, it wasn't always comfortable. I know that there was times where you were, figuratively pulling your hair out of frustration, but you stayed with it and you dove in and you went into the shadowlands and you went into the underworld of what needed to be seen and what needed to be looked at within yourself. You resolved it. You showed up with courage. You came out on the other side. And not only were you now more equipped to do this journey again, because unfortunately we don't just do it once, but it does get easier and it does get lighter as you move forward. And but you were able to actually birth this book, which is what wanted to come through you. And instead of it taking, because I know by the time you found me, you're like,
Mhm.
you've been struggling for a while. And so the satisfaction of like unplugging this and then letting this book stream out of you in less than 3 months. And not only did it stream out of you, but in the following years, this book, this instrument that came through your soul, it's all it is. It's just a tangible, execution. It's a tangible product of
Mm.
of your soul expression. And through this book, it opened up another door for you to, number one,
Mhm.
create an online business that is in alignment to your soul service. To number two, like, literally put yourself out there. And I know you've been speaking, you've been doing PowerPoints and keynotes at for some really important names, and putting yourself out there in some really big places and stages. And not only that, doesn't even end there, is not only is this the mission that, or the seedling of this book, like spreading as an online business and as your speaker career. And also, you're helping people like go through this transition at a much faster rate.
Mhm.
Hashtag collapsing timelines, right? Because we don't just, when we collapse our own timelines, we don't just do it for us, ourselves. When we collapse our own timelines and we can integrate the lessons and we can become more what we're here on this planet to become, the result of that is that we can deliver a service, a clean, pure, soul led service that is just going to activate other people to wake up and to collapse their own timelines in their own life. And so what you're experiencing is just like other people now being able to awaken and heal themselves in the workplace because of the way that you've done it for you. And so what's really cool about that is because I know that people who are listening, some of you might be thinking, oh my gosh, I have this idea. I have this book that I've been wanting to publish, or I have this business I've been wanting to start, or I have this like change of life that I've been wanting to have. And as Susan has spoken to, it's important to get reconnected to that bigger why and to actually like viscerally feel in your body that your why is so much bigger than any of your fears. And once you connect to that, then it's just a matter of, okay, let's identify those blocks. Let's identify those fears that are happening, most of them in the subconscious, and just like do the work to clear them and get back into alignment, because this thing is meant to come through you. And when it does, it's going to not only transform your own life and like up level it so much, but it's also like through your own up leveling and through your own evolution, it's going to naturally support other people through theirs. And there's nothing more satisfying than knowing that what's pouring out of your heart and what's moving through you, through your soul, is just naturally helping other people. And there's nothing you got to do other than be you and express as you and show up as that. And then everything flows from that space. So that's really, really beautiful share, Susan, because it's so inspiring. Even just listening to your story, I'm consistently reminded of why I do the work that I do. And I'm also reminded of like why whenever we're struggling and we're going through these challenges and we're going through like the stickiness of this work, why it's worth it. And so I would love if you could share with us a bit about, because I know this is completely related to your own journey and what you teach, like what is the stickiness of this work? Like what is the stickiness of healing in the workplace? Because you've spoken that, there's a journey, there's a really clear journey that we go through, which is the unconscious wounded career path. And where you want to end up is the healed, conscious and healed career path. Why? Because it feels better, because it's in soul service, because it's a better way to live. So can you share, like, for people who might be still in the unconscious wounded career path, like through the lens of your own experience, what is the stickiness? How do you prepare these people for this journey? What is it that they can expect to go through, and what's on the other side for them when they actually do go through what I call it the underworld tunnel,
Sure.
and come out on the other side and experience the joys and the
So
lightness?
I think it's really important to understand, and I never knew this. I never thought about my childhood as dysfunctional, but the research shows that the Centers for Disease Control and Kaiser Permanente did a study a number of years ago, led by two doctors, and they asked 17,000 adults in the U.S. And by the way, the study has been replicated in many other countries also. And they asked these 17,000 adults to answer yes or no to some simple questions. Did you experience any of the following, what they called the adverse childhood experiences, known as the ACEs? And there are 10 pretty traumatic things like physical, emotional, sexual abuse, neglect, addiction in the home. I mean, these are 10 serious adverse childhood experiences. And they were shocked when they got the results back and discovered that nearly 2/3 of those who responded indicated they'd experienced at least one of those ACEs, and 40% had experienced two or more. Now, I never in a million years thought about my childhood as being a trauma-filled childhood. One of the kind of catalytic moments on my journey was a therapist recommended I go to a program called Healing Trauma. And I remember thinking, healing trauma, why? I didn't have any trauma. My childhood wasn't that bad. And I went to the course. It was at a place called Onsite. And it was amazing, and 7-day intensive program. And there was a moment in the program where the man who was working with our small group, the therapist, turned to me and said, "You had a lot of trauma in your childhood." And so what I have discovered on my own journey is that if you come from a past where there was some negative dynamic going on, and even if you didn't, you're likely working with or leading people who did, that past is having an effect on us every single day at work. And if you're like me, and I think most people that I've spoken to who are like, "Oh yeah, I never thought about that," we're carrying it, like it's almost like we're carrying it on our shoulders. Our past reality is joining us every day during work, when we're there thinking we're in our adult professional reality. But what happens is, for me, for example, I believe that it was pretty much everybody else, particularly men in authority, who had the power to determine whether or not I was good enough. And my job was to show up every day and to prove to them that I was, by being perfect and, the perfect people pleaser. And as a result of that, I constantly felt like I wasn't good enough. There was this state of being in a place of always being on guard, always worried about what's going to happen. When conflict would happen at work, or somebody would do something, this is the unconscious wounded career path, I would get emotionally triggered, particularly if I all of a sudden felt like I wasn't good enough, I was stupid, I was being excluded, a boss looked at me cross-eyed, whatever it was, I would get emotionally triggered. And I would go into this cycle of spiraling down, ultimately leading to a lot of stress and anxiety, and repeating it over and over and over again. And the cost of being on that unconscious wounded career path, the cost are things like workaholism. All I did was work, trying to prove myself. When I wasn't at work, I was at home worrying about work. Workaholism, addiction, um, let's see, impact on your relationship with family members. One of the hardest things for me to admit and to talk about, I often get quite emotional about it, is that in my unconscious state of trying to get validated at work, I was unconsciously neglecting my own sons. And I'm very lucky that I have a very good relationship with them. They're grown now, but that's another cost. This cost of always feeling like you're not enough is a debilitating experience. So, like I said before, it's destructive. It felt like there's just a lot of misery and pain. And we know that we've been triggered when something happens at work and we're ruminating about it for way too long. And, so that's the state that a lot of people are in. What I've found in talking to people is most people don't share that they're not feeling like they're good enough. I've heard all kinds of unbelievable limiting beliefs from people. Things like, my dad told me that I could never do anything right. Um, Feeling like you're too small. Everybody else is smarter than you. I had one very successful leader tell me once that his mother told him he was only as good as last year's snow, which is basically meaning he was worthless. And how we carry that in our hearts and souls. And we learn different ways of trying to protect ourselves when we're little. Mine was people pleasing and perfectionism. For other leaders, and I've seen this throughout my career, it could be bullying, corporate bullying that happens. I see people trying to hide from any attention. I worked with one woman who told me once that in 30 years of her career at the same company, she never spoke once until someone spoke to her. She literally was trying to stay invisible. And so we create these protective strategies around ourselves, thinking that it's helping us. But when we're unconsciously playing them out at work, it's actually damaging our relationships with other people and damaging our relationship with ourselves. And so what Martha and I do in the book, Healing at Work, is we teach people that rather than thinking about work as a place of stress and anxiety, which it was for me for so many years, to start thinking about the workplace as your very own laboratory for emotional healing. And the reason I say that is because there's lots of reasons. We could go into a lot of detail, but I'll just quickly touch on Dr. Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology. He's got a great book called Flourish. He's got 5 components that he says are important to have in your life to flourish. All 5 of those elements are available to us at work every single day. As an acronym, PERMA, positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievements. All of those are available to us. We just don't often think about it. But I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. The real reason I love the workplace as the laboratory for emotional healing is because conflict happens all of the time. There are so many moments throughout the day where we can get emotionally triggered by something. Someone said something, someone didn't say something, someone did something, we did something, all of a sudden someone's mad at us. There are all these moments. And in the book, we call those bumper car moments. It's like you're going along your day, you're working fine, everything's good, and all of a sudden someone crashes into you, or you either intentionally or unintentionally crash into somebody else, and there's like this big boom explosion. Your limiting beliefs are at the front of your mind. All of your old protective strategies are kicking in, and it's almost like throwing fuel on a fire in terms of the reaction because of how we were programmed, or maybe that's not the right word, things that we believed about ourselves that I don't think our parents intentionally tried to create. I don't think parents are trying to do this in most cases, but we have all these things we think about ourselves. When we get triggered emotionally at work, it's literally like a big explosion. But what I teach in the course as well as in the book is that actually when we're triggered emotionally is the best time to practice realizing, first of all, okay, I just had a bumper car moment. Okay, I need to do something about all this physiological energy that's going on inside of me. When, if I think my boss is mad at me or I feel like I'm in trouble, I immediately feel like an elephant sitting on my chest. My heart rate goes up, my breathing goes up. I can't relax. That high sense of anxious, anxiety that's not going anywhere. When that happens, I almost have to say, okay, you just had a bumper car moment. Chill out. I have a 3-step process, which we don't have time to teach today, but I teach it in the course. There's a process for healing when you get emotionally triggered. Being conscious, right? That was the thing that came from our one-on-one intensive. Being conscious that I'm having a very strong reaction. It's very likely fueled by things I believed about myself in the past. I almost automatically want to go into my automatic tap dance of perfectionism and people pleasing, which is not a good state to go into. And instead, I work through a process to actually manage the emotion that's coming up. And you've helped me a lot with this. The work, I've been very fortunate to be a private client of yours. You've taught me so many techniques for how to process the emotion, how not to try to ignore or avoid the emotion, but to feel the emotion, because you can't move forward consciously until you've done that. You can't do the work that you teach about rewiring your belief system until you've dealt with the emotion. And there's lots of fun ways to do that. I have a plastic bat. I like to use that to hit it on a bed to get all the emotion out. You teach, you got to use sound, movement, and breath. And so I do that. So that's part of stepping onto that conscious healing career path. This is the transition, the transformation that can occur is starting to realize when you're triggered, you're being influenced by the past and you're having an outdated interpretation of what's going on because of what you experienced. But you can actually move through that through this 3-step process, call it the rapid power reclaim. And you could start using every single time you're in a moment of conflict as an opportunity to start rewiring the neural pathways in your brain to think differently rather than to going into those automatic beliefs about ourselves, that we can actually stop that and say, no, okay, I'm responding because of what I dealt with when I was little. I'm a grown up. I'm an adult. How do I move into my highest functioning adult self to manage this situation? And when people step onto that conscious healing career path, it's a journey. It's a healing journey. I wouldn't say it's a healed journey because I am human. I still get triggered once in a while. But the healing journey, when we step onto that conscious healing career path, we start to discover that a lot of times we're responding at work from what you taught me is called the adapted child. It's that ego defense part of us trying to protect all that raw emotion. And for me, it was the pleaser. That was my adapted child. But unfortunately, what ends up happening is we're all showing up at work in our adapted children rather than our highest functioning adult selves, which, the workplace is a great opportunity for a lot of conflict, considering 2/3 of us had a dysfunctional past and 2/3 of us are launching into all these old behaviors. The conscious healing career path teaches us to slow down, become conscious about what's going on, take very specific steps to navigate differently in those bumper car moments, and learn how to literally rewire our brains so that we start to believe different things about ourselves. We start to actually take steps towards deeper self-acceptance. And I think part of what's motivated me through all the things that I've been through was that in the early 2000s, I was in a personal development course, a seminar called Pathways to Successful Living, the leadership course. And in it, we had to do an exercise to figure out our purpose on life. And I thought it was kind of dumb. Like, this isn't really real, right? I really wasn't paying much attention to it, but they made us work. Well, what I realized in that exercise was my life purpose is to teach self-acceptance to create a more joyful world. And I know healing at work is all about teaching people deeper levels of self-acceptance, because what I've learned is that it's nobody's job to determine my worth or my value. That's my job. Nobody gets to take that away from me. And so if someone's upset with something that I've done or said, then I get an opportunity to step into that conscious healing career place where I navigate from my healthy adult self that realizes that what this person thinks of me is probably important, but they don't get to determine my value. And so there are a number of different benefits that come. You get to navigate conflict far more effectively. You interpret what's going on around you in the moment versus being influenced by things that happened to us in the past. We start to actually kind of look forward to workplace conflict because every time it happens, it's going to give us an opportunity to learn something more about ourselves that makes us even more a whole person. And oh my gosh, I could go on and on, but I feel like I've been rambling. So that's healing at work, is using the workplace as a laboratory for emotional healing. So as Martha always says, instead of the dog bit the man bites the dog. And that's what healing at work is all about.
I love it. So there's quite a few very important nuggets that you just share with us, and I just want to highlight for our listeners. So the first piece that was so important that you shared is that most people don't even know that, like, the levels at which they're being hijacked through their own trauma. Like I remember when I first learned about the concept of trauma, I was like, what do you mean trauma? Like that's only
Right.
reserved for people who have like are war survivors or who are like in a much, much worse position in life than I am. Like those people have trauma. I don't have trauma. And I remember just becoming aware and learning of this concept of trauma and being in denial that this was actually something that was happening when we actually remove the story of trauma. Because I know trauma is like a heavy word and it's got all these connotations around it. And it really depends on the definition and the person that and how people define it in their own systems. The way I define trauma, and at least how I've learned it through my training as a hypnotherapist, through my training as a breath worker, and several other modalities that I'm specialized in, is that trauma is simply like an event that was much bigger than what the nervous system could handle at the time. And so something, for example, that is traumatic for a 5-year-old, like maybe a little kid pushed you in the playground and that stayed with you as an imprint in your emotional body for the rest of your life. If that were to happen when you were 30 years old, like it wouldn't have left the same extent of imprint as it did when you were 5. So there's all these events that happened in our lives that we were not equipped, prepared to hold or handle, and we did not receive the support that we needed to process and integrate it after the fact. And so if we actually if we remove the story from trauma, and of course, unfortunately, some people have had some really terrible, like big events happen that they were definitely not equipped to hold, because who the heck is going to teach you? Like what parent could teach you that, oh, by the way, in case this horrible things happens to you, here's what you do. Like there's some things that are just completely out of our wheelhouse. And that's just, the part of being a human being is that we're going to be exposed to all of these experiences. And when we're children, we're very innocent in the way that we don't know what to do about it. We don't know how to work with it. And more often than not, unfortunately, we don't have the support system around us to help us actually like work with it and resolve it as we're children. And that's a whole different episode for another time. But it's important to understand that most people just aren't even aware of the levels of trauma that is actually affecting them. And as you have shared, when we are unaware of the ways that our past trauma is affecting us today, the subconscious mind does not know the difference between past and reality. The subconscious mind operates as if everything is happening right now. And so when we don't actually work through or like resolve, untangle, and, as we say, quote unquote, heal our past and make peace with it truly, authentically, that our past is going to continue to inform our present. And if our past is informing our present, it means we are living in the past, and any decisions that we make for our future is going to be rooted in who we have been in the past, which means that our future is going to look very similar to our past. And that's why people are not able to create change in their life. Because to create really big change in your life and to transform your life and create a new future, you need to break free of the chains of the past. And that's it. It happens. It needs to happen on a mental level, which looks like belief systems. It needs to happen on an emotional level, which is the energy. Emotion is energy in motion. It's the energy that got stuck in your body at the time of that event. It needs to be released. And it needs to happen on an energetic level, which we've been talking about on our soul, which is really being able to open ourselves up to our intuition and to receive the guidance that we're here to receive. And last but not least, it needs to happen on the physical level, which is tied to the other factors I shared. Because when you have, for example, you're holding on to all this grief in your heart for years and years at a time, and you're not doing anything to let go or like really make peace with that, that can develop into physical diseases such as a heart disease or cancer or wherever it may look like. And, in one of my favorite books, which is called The Body Keeps the Score, goes really deep into the science of the ways that our repressed emotions will physically affect us. They will physically create disease in our bodies because our bodies are keeping the score. They're remembering. So that's something that's really important that you shared that I just wanted to pull out and highlight. Something else that you've shared, Susan, that I find to be really important is that the workplace being a laboratory for us to really do this work. And, Tony Robbins, and I know you and I've transferred this over to, and I've also done many corporate workshops around this, around the concept of our human needs and the ways that we meet our human needs. So we have, our human needs, core human needs that every single human being on the planet shares. And they look like the need for consistency, like the need for stability and groundedness, inconsistency, which is the desire for variety and differences, love and connection, which is, being in connection and love with other human beings, significance, which is the feeling of I'm important, I matter, like who I am in this existence matters. And those are the 4 human needs. And then we have the needs of the spirit, which is contribution and growth. And so when we look at the workplace, the reason why the workplace is such an effective laboratory is because for the better and for the worst, our work meets a lot of our human needs. And, it gives us a sense of significance, which is who I am matters. It gives us a sense of love and connection. When I do this, I get this, or, this is the shadow side of it, but there's a lot of beautiful pieces, when you're in a team, when you're working together as a team, as a unit, there's that sense of connection there. And it can also look like the shadow side of that is I need to please my boss so that he will give me validation so I can feel connected to someone. There's also, this need of variety, which is, there's a problem. There's something for me to solve that wasn't there yesterday. There's a sense of consistency, maybe less for the entrepreneur, but you get to a place I know I've gotten in my place in my entrepreneurship where I feel like consistency is there. But yeah, you have this place of consistency of, I show up, I do the work, there's a production that's happening, and then there's growth, you grow, and there's contribution, which is your work is contributing. And so that's actually one of the reasons why work can be so addicting for people, is because it meets all of our needs. And then we start to look at work as a way to meet all of our needs. And we don't look to meet our needs outside of the workplace, which is you've spoken to, like our family, our personal lives, like our hobbies. There's so many different ways in our human life that we can meet our needs and need to meet our needs in order for us to feel satisfied. And most people, when they're unaware of their trauma or they're unaware of what's actually going on, they will look to get everything they need from the workplace. So it can be a good thing. And it can also be, if it's left unchecked, it can turn into an addiction. But what you're speaking to is the light side of this, which is that when we come into work, we are in a place where all our needs are on the table and our past is also on the table. So there will inevitably, because we are working with all these other human beings and we're interfacing with them, and like you said, two-thirds of them have unresolved trauma, it's going to be inevitable that we're going to bump the bumper car moments. We're going to bump heads. We're going to have friction with each other, and there's going to be triggers that come up for you, for them, for the collective. And what I'm also hearing is a big part of your work is that, okay, there's a few ways to handle this. You can handle this by just being triggered and being mad and being stressed and being upset every day when you come back and carrying that thing that Karen said to you that morning at the water cooler, just letting it affect you for the next 4 days. And it can be just absolute torture. Or you can start to be like, okay, I'm at work today. Inevitably, there's going to be triggers that come up. I'm going to have a trigger, which, is just essentially an old emotion coming up and being like, hello, I'm mad. I'm mad at Karen because she said this, but really I'm mad because she's reminding me of how unworthy I felt my entire life growing up. And when we actually start to take responsibility for that as a functioning adult, instead of playing victim to someone else saying this thing that made us mad, because that's just living on eggshells and that is no fun, what we can actually do is start to play. And what I love about your work is if you really gamified it, which is like you come in and you're like, okay, something might pop up today. How can I recognize it for what it is, which is a trigger, see that we're both, maybe being adaptive children right now, step into my functioning adult, like become responsible for my own nervous system and the emotional processing and taking care of my trigger, coming back into the situation as an adult. And then now how can I respond instead of react so that I can grow as a human being? I can evolve. I can give this person a platform, a safe space to also step into their functioning adult. And now we can work together to evolve both as human beings. And then from that natural evolution, the work is going to flow. If you're with a coworker and you're having friction, you're not going to quote unquote perform at the same level as you would if you're both in harmony. And that's something that when I'm consulting with corporations or when I'm working with executives, I need to keep reminding them again and again and again why the inner work, because so many people put it in the back burner saying, I don't have time for that stuff. I don't have time for that hippie stuff. Or like, why should I worry about my triggers? Like, I've got stuff to do. I have a really full calendar. And it's just like, well, you could keep filling it up with all the stuff you got to do. And you can do it like pushing a rock up a hill because it's so difficult and it's so like, it's not flowing. And so you have to just push, or you can take a step back, get into alignment, create harmony in your environment with the people around you. And when you're all in harmony, you are going to work more efficiently, which means that you're going to spend less time and less effort and less energy creating more results. That to me sounds like the epitome of high performance and efficiency.
I agree.
This is the work we got to do. So all of that being said, the last piece that I wanted to cover with you was really around time, which I know it's something that we have been talking about. And, part of one of the beautiful things I like to offer to whoever wants to take me up on it, and you have said yes to my guests, is just an opportunity to receive laser coaching. 10 to 15 minutes of let me support you with something that's going on in your life that you would like to create resolution in. And so I know that in what you shared with me before this episode was we've been working on this separately, independently in our private work together, but you'd like some additional work support with time, which I know is something that is the busier we get, the more successful we get, the more we hold as entrepreneurs and career people, like the more time starts to feel like a limited resource. And so share with me or share with us, Susan, what is it that you would like to receive some laser coaching on today?
I know I have some subconscious programming around my relationship with time. And I'm just discovering this because this is a new lesson. So that's why I thought this would be good to keep working on. So my relationship with time has been not great. I would say always angry that I don't have enough time, frustrated, I want more time. When I'd sit down to work on a project, it'd always take more time than I planned it would take. And never felt like time was on my side. I always felt like I was racing to stay ahead of time. I don't know how to explain it. And things would pop up on my calendar and it'd be super crowded. And I would just feel like I was running a marathon, but was doing it like a sprint. So I really like some more work on continuing to understand some of the subconscious beliefs I have about time. One of the things that you just taught me, like within the last few weeks in our sessions, is that I need to start thinking about time as my partner and my ally. And I would love your thoughts about what are some specific ways I can do that more effectively.
Well, the first thing to notice is that even when you're talking about time, notice the restriction in your field, right? Notice even your heart. I can feel your heart going, right? It's just contracting. And even in your solar plexus, you're like, and it's feel, is that feel true to you, Susan, as I speak this out loud?
You need to work with me here. But pushing time away.
Right. So here's my first question. Yeah. So my first question is, what's your problem?
Well, there's never enough. It just, there's, from my perception, there's not enough. My primary focus, of course, is on my corporate job. And then my passion work is in every hour, 5 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock on a Saturday or whatever. So trying to find time. I will say, so I'm going to stop there. But I did do something different this week because of what you've been teaching me. which is to really think about what really matters the most. I know this doesn't get at some of my subconscious programming, because that's we can deal with that in a minute. Because I have some bad relationships with time based on how my dad managed time. But what I did this week, which is unusual, because usually, my number one priority, as it should be, is always my job, my corporate job. But there's never enough time to get that done either. It's never fast enough. It's never enough. But last weekend, after you and I had one of our sessions, I thought one of my most important priorities are my sons and my mom and my husband. And so I'm going to always make them my priority. And so my youngest son wrote to me and said, "Hey, Mom, can you help me with my resume?" And I thought, okay, time. Time. I got to have to move some things out of the way to do this, because, I need to focus on that. But you know what? I did it. I created the space that I needed, and I helped him. I gave him some input on the resume he was working on. And it felt so rewarding that, there's never going to be enough time to do everything at work. There's never going to be enough time to do everything outside of work with healing at work. But it was a joyful experience to make him the priority last Tuesday. That it was a little bit of a treat. You always talk about giving yourself a treat when you do something differently. Just his text to me was the treat. I'm going to get all choked up. Whereas normally I just would have said, "Yeah, I'll get to it this weekend." And so that was different. I haven't done that before, but I'm getting all emotional. But yes, let's talk about my relationship with time and where it comes from and what we're working on.
Yeah. So the emotion you're experiencing, that's the heart, by the way. That's in your heart. So I would just encourage you to breathe into that, because the contraction you were feeling just a few moments ago, now what you're feeling is that why, right? That time. So what I want you to just be present with right now is that beautiful emotion that's running through your heart, which is that love, which your son has just, thank you, son.
Sam.
You have just, which one is it?
I was helping Sam. Yeah.
Oh, Sam. Oh, yes. So Sam, thank you so much for this, because what you've just done is you activated Mom's heart. So it's beautiful, because this is just breathe. You allow yourself to breathe into it. Because similar, remember when we talked about why? The why is bigger than the fear. Same thing here. When you were in contraction just a few minutes ago, that contraction makes it difficult for us to find a solution. So if you can allow yourself to actually expand into the love that's currently moving through your heart, what it's going to do, it's going to shift the energy field for us to actually find a solution in a much more easeful and loving manner.
Sounds good. I feel good. I feel relaxed.
How do you feel now? There we go. Beautiful. So from this space, here's what I want you to hear, is that the issue, the challenge that you're experiencing with time, it's not about actually time. Time is not against you. Time doesn't have beef with you. Time is actually just a concept that the humans created. We humans created, and time is relative. Okay. So it's actually not time that is the challenge you're experiencing right now, is your personal relationship with time. And it's really important to become aware of that. So when it comes to your personal relationship with time, what I wanted to, take a deep breath in, let that come in. Let me know when you're ready to receive the next piece. Let this one land.
I'm good.
Beautiful. So the next piece is your relationship with time. When we look at we zoom in and we look at its structure in your subconscious, the way it's been organized in your subconscious. This quote unquote relationship with time is based, number one, on the way your father modeled time for you. Okay. And the way that he was dealing with time. And because there's a really deep trigger with your dad that I know you've done massive amounts of work with, but it's just when we bring awareness to it, I know you can, if you hadn't done the amount of work that we have done on this, I would have said, let's just go in, let's give this specific thing an entire session. But because I know where you're at in this level of your own growth, I know that bringing your awareness, your conscious awareness to this is enough for you to start dissolving it. Okay. And to really start to see that because of the way that time was modeled with you, with your dad, and because of the associations you have with your dad, the way he treated time automatically becomes very icky and very uncomfortable. But it's also become something that it's the only thing you knew how to do. So that's one of the pieces, let's say the puzzle pieces of the way that time has been organized in your system. Another one of the puzzle pieces is the way that the system that you're in, which we call corporate, organizes time. And I know there's a lot of collective conditioning in the corporate world around, needing to stack up a bunch of meetings in your calendar. And if you don't, you're being judged for it. And everyone needs to meet and have like 12 hours of meeting, even though it's not really necessary, but it's the norm. It's the way that the culture is. So please understand that the puzzle pieces here are, number one, your own modeling that mostly was wired in before you were 7, with a figure that you have a lot of conflict with. And therefore you're taking this on and it's creating conflict with time. Okay. The other thing is the collective conditioning around that you have been in over 30 years that will inevitably, have an imprint on you of this is how other people do it, especially when you're in your, you were in your people pleaser mode. Then you would have taken on a lot of the expectations that were projected onto you as to how you needed to manage your time. So if you were saying, well, I want to be home and take Wednesday off and be with my son, I want to take my son to school, someone else's distorted relationship with time would be projected onto you, and they would say, what do you mean? Like, we have a meeting right now. And because they're not connected to the importance of spending time with your child, that means that gets transferred over to you, and then you're expected to be disconnected with that. And because you hadn't had your own boundaries set in place, you weren't able to say no to that. And the consequence of that was consistently overriding your own boundaries and overriding your own desires for you to succumb to an external model of time. Okay.
Definitely landing.
How does this landing so
I hadn't
far?
thought about the 35 years of conditioning. And I hadn't really thought about my dad's relationship with time and how much that did affect my understanding of time. Everything was always intense. It was an intensity of, it was always rushing. And, if we were late getting out to the car, the horn would be honking if we were 1 second late. So I hadn't thought about that.
So just start to become aware as I'm speaking into this. Just start to become aware that when we actually deconstruct this block that you're saying time, it's not time, it's your relationship with time. And as we deconstruct that, what your relationship with time is composed with the piece around your dad. It's composed with collective conditioning that's happening, and it's composed with, whatever other limiting belief systems that you've created since then to actually justify why you were spending your time this way. So here's the good news, is that now you are aware of your own sovereignty. You are aware of, your role as a creator of your own reality, and you're here now. And who you are now is not who you were then. So the really cool thing here is that there's a choice here to be made. And the choice looks like, are you ready and are you willing to reorganize and reconstruct your relationship with time so that it is in alignment to your higher soul purpose and your core values, which one of them is service, but it's also love and spending time with your loved ones. Are you willing to reorganize your paradigm to prioritize what's most important to you and your soul?
I am definitely committed.
Beautiful. So this is something that we will definitely unpack and continue to resolve in a bigger way in our private containers. But for, because I know that this is something that a lot of people are struggling with. So I want to speak into a few things, which is that if you're ready, and which you said that you are, then understand that there's two parts to this, your quote unquote homework. The first part is to become aware that your relationship with time that has been up until now does not have to be copied and pasted into your relationship with time moving forward. And if you can become aware of that and understand that to be true in your system, what that means is that moving forward, you can rewrite it. You can rewrite your relationship with time. And so there will be some work to be done. I'm not going to be like, okay, well, like we could just brush this one away. We'll need to look at, what's going on with your relationship with dad and with time, and just unpack that and just release that. There might be some emotion that wants to come through there, and just releasing that and allowing that part of you to clear through your system. The other part is just creating like this awareness that the collective unconscious of the corporate that you are involved in, you don't have to take it on. And as an empath, it's really natural and it's really easy to absorb it as it being your reality. But there needs to be some boundaries that are set in place around, okay, that's what you think, that I need to be in this meeting. Well, I recognize as a leader and, as somebody who can see what is needed in this situation, I don't actually need to be in this meeting. So I'm going to say no to this meeting. And here's what I'm going to create instead. Right. So it's like there's tools that we can use to mitigate the way that you are relating with other people's projections of how you use your time. Because at the end goal is that when you show up at your job, you're efficient, you're good at it, and you're doing what you're meant to be doing. And so if you're in a stressed space or you're in a place of being stretched thin, you're not actually able to perform in your role at the level that you can perform. And so you do need that space to create the space for yourself so that you can be in a place to deal with work problems better, to work with other people better. So that's another piece, is really understanding what boundaries need to be put in place for you to actually for you to be in the workplace and to be surrounded by these constructs around time, but not be affected by them. And when somebody's adding you to a meeting, if you authentically know, I don't need to be in this meeting, that you can decline that meeting. And if somebody gets triggered about it, healing in the workplace, you have a conversation about that. And you have a conversation about your time and why you need to have certain pockets of time in your calendar completely open, and how that's going to actually contribute to the overall better good of the company and productivity of the company. So there's a lot of conversations that can be had. So that's the piece of rewriting the relationship with time. Now, the other part of this, and does that feel, before I go into the other piece, does that feel all clear to you, Susan?
In my current workplace, I could have done a much better job in my past, but there are certainly opportunities. My boss and I have some great agreements around when we meet and how that works. And your suggestion around thinking about all the meetings that I get invited to, that's given me some new things to think about. So this is good.
Yeah. And it is a work in progress, because it's a building. It's first identifying, which actually brings us into the second piece, which is number one. And I know we've done this work with each other around like what your core values are. So I don't need to coach you through that, but really understanding like your core values. If you were to build a life and a business and also your career around your core values, your top 3 core values, for example, what would you off the cuff?
The work
what
that
comes
we've
up
done,
for you immediately?
my top 3 are clarity, courage, and I just lost it. Clarity, courage. Oh, I know.
Come into your heart, and then let whatever needs to come through come through.
Clarity. It was.
I'm
it was
picking
honesty,
up on love.
clarity, courage, and honesty. Yep.
Yeah, beautiful. So when you are actually prioritizing your day through these core values, clarity, courage, and honesty, and I would also say from our conversations, time with your husband and love, and you start to look at the structure of your calendar through, how do I prioritize these things in my life and what is needed? What are the pockets of time that I need throughout the day? And understanding that time is man-made, okay? So if it's a construct, if it's a belief system that was created by the collective, it means that you can actually work with it your own way. And so once we separate you from the contraction of your relationship with time, which you're going to work on, and you have your homework there, and we just look at time and your calendar as its own, it is your choice. It is what you get to create. Then how can you actually prioritize your values and put what matters to you first, and then what matters to you second, and then like basically look at it as like a bullseye instead of it looking at it as a linear, look at it as a bullseye, where the bullseye is like, these are the things that fill me up every single day, and then just light me up and open me up. So that goes into your calendar first. And then, okay, these are the things, for example, work, it's very important. It's, it's how I'm creating my livelihood. Like, okay, that goes into your calendar second, let's say. And then the pieces of, okay, I'll get to this when I get to this, that can go be layered in if you have the time. So if you start to actually rearrange the paradigm of time to go from the center, even like look at the bullseye as like your heart and having it like ripple out, just from me speaking into this, what immediately comes into your field? Like, what immediate insights do you have about some ways that you can shift and adjust your calendar?
I think it's just about being way more intentional about what gets on the calendar, and organizing my schedule so that where my energy is high, I'm working on the highest value, either professional or personal things.
Mm.
And it's very easy. A lot of people, I'm sure this is true of a lot of people want to get on my calendar. And so saying no more also is going to be important. Yeah. I mean, I think
Boundaries.
it boiled down to
Mhm.
really thinking about, like I did last week, really thinking about what are my biggest priorities, and am I making room for them in my life? Um, and that's what I'm focused on.
Mhm. And it's not just asking the question,
It's
am I
making the room.
making
Yep.
room for them in
Yep.
my life? But how do I
Right.
create the room now? And so what you're saying, one of the insights that came through is your highest energy moments is where, when it comes to, productivity, is where you basically schedule in the
Right.
highest
Right.
productive work tasks, right? And then in your moments, you need to create these pockets of time where you're consciously like spending time with your husband or your sons. That could look like
Yep.
dinner time being blocked out for an hour. But what I'm hearing is that you need to become more intentional and more diligent with, how can I create a pocket of time where my highest value work is
Yes.
happening during this time. And then with the rest of the time, saying no to a lot of things, creating boundaries, and also making sure that every single day you're creating space for the people that you
Yeah.
love, which
Yeah.
I know is really, really important to you. Right. And I know in my experience, when I do my work, like, people ask, how do you, people have said to me, like, Celine, you're a machine. Like, how do you do so much? And I'm like, well, I just
Mhm.
needed to reorganize my relationship with time, and my relationship with, it's not about how much I work, it's about how I work. And so if I have a 2-hour pocket during the day in an uninterrupted focus time, I will pick my most important projects and I will just be with those projects for 2 hours. And there has been times where I have been able to, like on a plane ride, like a 4-hour plane ride, I can just knock out 3 weeks worth of work. And then I don't have to sit there for 3 weeks working 60 hours to get a project done, because I had 10 clean, high energy, hyper focused moments of time where I could
Yeah.
actually create what I'm here to create. And I know you've had these moments, we've all had these moments where we lose time because we're so in the flow, we're so in the zone, we're so present with what we're doing, that we're like, oh my God, has it already been half an hour? Has it already been an hour? Or it's only been 20 minutes, and we
Mhm.
completely lose the concept of time. So we can actually like consciously engineer this in our life, where we start to create pockets of our day and every single day. And I know I've talked to you about this, but when I'm working with clients, it looks like a non-negotiable morning time, like a morning practice that is yours and no one can touch it. It looks like having little pockets throughout the day where you can just completely be and do whatever it is that you want. And it looks like reorganizing how you work, so that your highest energy period of time is dedicated to the highest impact period of time. So you're not like, texting random people who like don't necessarily need a message. You don't need to be like texting back during your highest, most inspired moments. Like it's about rearranging time to synchronize with your flow, with your flow state, and with your
Love it.
focus. So me sharing all of that, does anything else come up with what kind of adjustments and changes you can take, like leaving this episode, that you can take
Well,
with you and create
I've
in your
already
life?
started this, but sitting down with my executive assistant and really being intentional and thoughtful about how we organize the schedule. it's easy to kind of lose control of the schedule, and that's on me, not her. And so I think we've already talked about the next few weeks, and we've agreed we're going to meet on a regular basis to talk about it. But I need to make the time. I need to put it on my schedule to do it because it's made a huge difference just in the last week or so.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, that sounds
It's
like a priority then to
Yes.
put on your schedule.
And I also need to look at my schedule going forward to see what's on it to say, no, I'm not going to do that.
So doing a bit of
Yes.
cleanup in our calendar and just starting to purge things up. And really important, when you remove something from your calendar,
Right.
keep that space open. Don't just refill it. And if there is a temptation to refill it, check in with yourself and ask, is this alignment to my core values? And is this, me with my family? And is this like basically worth the cost of this time?
Yeah.
Is it really worth what I'm going to fill it with? Because remember, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And it's time is not all time is created equal. And we know we've talked about this, that 1 hour of you checking your email and doing administrative work does not equal 1 hour of you writing or 1 hour of you working on something that is you're absolutely passionate about. It's still measured as 60 minutes in both cases, but the quality of one is significantly higher, more fulfilling and more nourishing the quality than the other. And so allowing more of your pockets of time to be filled with the highest possible like quality, like premium time, like it's like gourmet time versus junk food time. Like you're filling these pockets of time with gourmet high value experiences instead of junky, like, let me answer this email just because it's in my inbox and I can't stand having like an unopened email in my inbox, right? That's a completely different frequency and a completely different quality of how that time is being utilized.
Yes, I like that a
more
lot.
gourmet
That sounds
time.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful.
That was great.
So
that was really
how
helpful.
does that all
Thank
feel?
you.
My absolute pleasure. Beautiful. All right. So we're going to start to wrap things up. Thank you so much, Susan, for coming today. This has been such an insightful conversation. And I know that anyone who's listening, especially if you're either managing a team, I know even hearing this again and again as the leader of a big team, it's really helpful for me to receive these things as well for how I can be a better manager and better CEO. And I know that for those of you who are still in corporate in your workplace, this is definitely going to be tremendously helpful for how you can navigate your workplace. So, Susan, can you share with us how can we find you? Where can people learn more about your beautiful work? And I know that you also spoke that we've done a training, you and I together.
Sure.
So can you share a bit more about
So the best way to
that as well?
find me is at healingatwork.com. So HEALING at work.com. And that's my personal website. Obviously, you can find all kinds of things. I've got a option to look at the courses. I've got a signature course, a mini course, and lots of different things to explore there. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn, Susan Schmitt, SCHMITT Winchester as well. That's probably my most popular platform. And you could find me there. And then as you just mentioned, Selena and I did a recording. It's really, I don't know what you would call it, a bonus. It's a bonus as a part of my signature course. But we created a course in understanding energetic hooks and how it is that many times we tend to hook into the same kind of people. I was really good at hooking into angry bosses, and not just angry men, but angry masculine women also, and really understanding why we hook into certain people and how we can break that. And so in partnership with Celine, we've decided to launch that, to make that available to people to purchase and experience. And I'm working on that on my end with my technical team, and I'll have all the details soon. It'll be on my website. And I know Celine will also be sharing it through her community as well. But I'm super excited about it. It's an hour-long discussion. And Celine, you just were amazing in helping me understand, and anybody who listens to the course or to that bonus, how it is that we tend to attract the same kind of people over and over again, and how we can break that.
Beautiful. Yeah, we go into this is a beautiful training as a supplement to Susan's course that really goes into, for those of you who are listening and thinking, okay, but how do these triggers happen and why do they happen? And what can I literally do like when I'm in that space where my coworker is saying something to me and I'm triggered, like what is actually happening in my subconscious and what are some tools and techniques that I can bring in to resolve this in real time. So for those of you who are more curious about the how and really diving deeper into this work so that you can improve your responses in the workplace, become aware of what's happening, and actually create that healing within yourself. It's going to be a really beautiful addition, and I highly, highly recommend that you go and watch it. It's going to be linked to the show notes. It's really potent. So
Yay,
thank you so much, Susan. It's always a pleasure, and I'm just very excited to not only have this conversation with you, but I get so much of you. I get to see your face next week, and then I get to see you again for a VIP day in May. So I can't get enough of you, and I'm really, really glad that I was able to introduce the listeners as well to your incredible, life-changing work in the workplace. So thank you for
amazing.
coming today.
I
so
loved it.
appreciate
Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, beautiful humans, for tuning in to today's episode of It's Not What You Think. If you loved what you received today, make sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes, and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts as it helps us reach even more amazing listeners like you. If we aren't already connected on social media, come receive even more tips and inspiration by following me on Instagram at Celine DaCosta or visiting my website at CelineDaCosta.com. After listening to this episode, I invite you to take a few moments to reflect. What stood out to you? What were your key takeaways or breakthroughs? And if there was one action step you could take from this, what would it be? Thank you again for joining me on this journey. I'm sending you so much love, and I can't wait to connect in the next episode. Until then, keep sharing your unique gifts and living out your most magical life.